Hi folks, so I'd said that I would be doing 3 videos in relatively rapid succession regarding the energy of the time, and they go together. So the first video was done a couple of days ago, and it talked about the fact that the week before and after Christmas, December 25th, is 2 months after the Scorpio solar eclipse. So it has a resonance. This week that we're in and next week has a resonance around eclipse-like changes. And I'm not going to go into describing that just yet. I want to spend time focusing on what this video is about, but you can take a look at the last video. I also brought up Mars retrograde in Gemini, I think for the third or fourth time, and you'll see why by the time we're done with the third video. This is the second of 3 videos. The third video is going to be about Jupiter transiting from Pisces to Aries. I was going to do that as the second video, but this felt more important, this new moon in Capricorn video, because the conversation regarding Jupiter and Aries needs to build on this particular conversation. We have a new moon in less than 24 hours, and typically I like to do my new moon videos after a new moon, and I think it frustrates a certain segment of my subscribers because I think people are used to seeing new moon videos 2-3 weeks before they come up. It's okay. Excuse me. I find videos, I'm still recovering from COVID, hence the garb and the coughing. I find that videos done 24 to 48 hours before new moons tend not to get a lot of circulation. That's one of the reasons why I do it then. I also find that the energies are much more relatable and connectable and relevant within 48 hours of a new moon, and that's when they're helpful and useful as opposed to 2 odd weeks before. But I could very well be wrong about that. I'll be the first to admit it. It could be helpful to have this information a couple of weeks in advance. Irrespective, here we are. When I did the last new moon video in Sagittarius, I talked about the planetary transits in Sagittarius, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, the new moon, as being kind of a ray of light in what is a turbulent time with heavy hitters in lots of different parts of the chart. Eclipses of release in Scorpio, Pluto transiting Capricorn, Saturn in Aquarius, Neptune in Pisces, and at that time Jupiter was in Pisces. Now Jupiter and Chiron in Aries, Uranus and the North Node eclipses in Taurus, Mars retrograde in Gemini. Leaves really only Cancer and Leo and Virgo and Libra kind of, free. 2/3 of the chart have these heavy hitters in them, and change and turmoil and heaviness in all those parts of the chart. But the Sagittarian part of the chart felt like it could offer a through line, a ray of light, a portal through all of this that could pull us through. Or at the very least, it could offer an area of lightness, because with Mercury and Venus and the Sun transiting so closely together, it could mean that opportunities or blessings or communications or a certain amount of energy could go into a part of the chart where it would all come together at the same time or in a similar time. We're at a time when new moons are now happening at the very start of, in the first couple of degrees. The new moon in Capricorn within 24 hours is in the first couple of degrees right after the Sun enters Capricorn, which the new moon in Aquarius is similar, the new moon in Pisces is similar, and the first new moon in Aries is similar. We have 2 new moons in Aries. The second new moon in Aries in April will also be a solar eclipse in the last degree of Aries. When the new moons happen right after the Sun, the energy of the new moon, the 4-week focus in that part of the chart, and the energy of the Sun transiting that part of the chart collide. So we have a much more compact, relatively speaking, to some extent, experience in that part of the chart. The subconscious illumination of the Sun transiting and the new moon giving energy with regard to achieving certain things or opportunities coming up or things needing to be tackled in that part of the chart. So far, Mercury and Venus have also been pretty close to these transits. Now, Mercury goes retrograde in Capricorn on the 29th of December, in about a week's time, less than a week's time. And that starts the process of Mercury kind of staying behind in Capricorn for much longer. Venus is going to go into Aquarius, the next sign, at the beginning of January. Third week of January, the sun will go in there, there'll be a new moon, but Mercury will remain behind in Capricorn till about, I think, February the 10th or so, unless I'm mistaken. Give me one sec. Mercury does not enter Aquarius till, yeah, February the 11th. Um, so, which, you know, is fine, really, because it's still Aquarius season, so it's not too bad. But the communication aspect of things started going to be happening after the Venus transit and the sun's and the new moon occurring. Okay, let me not confuse issues and come back to the Capricorn stuff. It could be that developments of the ray of light or the portal opened by the transits in Sagittarius lead to something more solid as the planets move into Capricorn. Now, this will depend on your chart. Sometimes recurring consecutive signs build on each other. So a development, let's say if Capricorn, I'm making this up, if Sagittarius sits in your 6th house, it could be that something that seemed like a ray of light from a work or a job perspective as the planets move into Capricorn in your 7th house turn into a contract or something more concrete. Or if Sagittarius sits in your 7th house, something that is coming up from a contractual perspective or long-term relationship perspective as planets move into Capricorn starts to solidify even more contractually with regard to how it is that finances will be managed and shared together, etc., etc. Okay? It doesn't always work for every chart. In addition, whether something feels like a ray of light or not depends on where these signs are in your chart. If Sagittarius or Capricorn are in the 12th house, for example, it's a much more muted energy than if Sagittarius or Capricorn are in your 10th house or 9th house or 5th house or 2nd house or 1st house. So you're going to have to base this. This is a general kind of description. But it could be archetypally, will not be true for everybody, but it could be that something that has been brewing in November, December, and particularly maybe gathering a certain amount of momentum in December, at this stage in the game, particularly since December, the Venus entered Capricorn. This will be interesting. So if you know your chart and you know where Capricorn sits in your chart, you know which house it occupies and what that house stands for. Venus entered Capricorn December the 6th. Mercury entered Capricorn on December the 10th. And the sun entered Capricorn yesterday on the 21st, and we have a new moon on the 23rd. Okay? So with these transits, it's a little bit like when these planets were transiting Sagittarius, invites went out for a banquet, and people were getting ready for it. And as we head into the new moon tomorrow, and particularly as we collide with Mercury retrograde in Capricorn in a week's time, it's almost like now the banquet table is laid and the gong has been struck, and it's an invitation to come to dinner. All of this energy builds on each other pretty smoothly. So planets were transiting Sagittarius. They may lead to something solid emerging as planets entered Capricorn. Venus entered first, Mercury entered next. Mercury, I think, overtook Venus. Yes, it did. And, well, actually, I'm not sure about that, but irrespective, I'm not sure about that. But no, it did. Because a retrograde Mercury conjuncts Venus on the same day it goes retrograde on December 29th. Isn't that interesting? But let me develop that. Let me not get ahead of myself. If relationship, monetary, creative, or whatever, with Venus, it's opportunity. Opportunities have built on each other through the middle of November, become more concrete or been taken to the next level since, let's say, December the 6th. And if communication around these has led to something more solid being put on the table as well, so far. and we're heading into the sun coming into Capricorn and a new moon tomorrow. As I said, it could very well be that something concrete has materialized in the Capricorn part of your chart, maybe related to the Sagittarius part of your chart, insofar as it's leveled up to something more solid. And it's almost as if the new year has been announced. But actually, there's even more to say. As these planets, Mercury and Venus, and soon the Sun, transit through Capricorn, they will trine, support the North Node in Taurus and Uranus in Taurus. Taurus is where the North Node eclipses are taking place, where we need to focus our attention and develop and capitalize on opportunities and learnings and level up our game. There could also be, this is why I've been bringing up Mars retrograde in Gemini so much, a population, a group, people associated with the Gemini part of the chart that are somehow related to this leveling up that's supposed to take place in the Taurus part of your chart as well, who are re-emerging, who are coming up again, who are, and it could be related to the Scorpio-Taurus eclipses that go back to April and May. It could be related to the Mercury retrograde that tied Gemini and Taurus for us in the beginning of the year in January, February. It could be different things that are coming up. It could be any number of things. It could be any component of that. Bottom line is, it could really feel like if something has materialized in terms of things like offers or opportunities or portals or the next thing or something that defines the new year for you or sets that table or this banquet table, it could really feel like it supports the eclipses that the Taurus part of your chart, where you're meant to lean into. Because this is all happening and leading into these 2 weeks with the Christmas week, you can see why it ties into this last video I did. It could also mean that somehow there's something brewing about releasing the Scorpio part of your chart, where the eclipses of release are taking place. But the planets transiting Capricorn trine Uranus and the North Node in Taurus. They also square Chiron in Aries. So whatever's trying to be healed in the Aries part of your chart gets triggered by this opportunity, and it supports the Taurus part of your chart. And it is in communication with the Mars retrograde in Gemini and the Scorpio eclipse release. In some ways, the most exciting part of these transits has occurred by now, over the last week, week and a half, since December 6th and since December 10th, and may have concretized as we head to this new moon. For a lot of people, this new moon squares Jupiter in Aries. It does not for me, because the square is complete before the new moon occurs. I like to look at approaching aspects, not separating aspects. But it means that something in the Capricorn part of the chart needs attention to facilitate Jupiter's Aries transit. This is going to be the subject of the third video I do. But for now, let's keep focused on the Capricorn part of the chart. Mercury comes in here. Venus comes in here the 6th of December. Mercury comes in here the 10th. These planets trine and support the Taurus part of our chart. They challenge the Aries part of our chart, but it's the Taurus connection I'm more interested in. Venus is done with its trines. It trined the North Node on December the 18th. It trines Uranus today. It conjuncts Pluto on its way out. Bear with me. Let me find this. On the 31st of this month, and then it moves into Aquarius on January the 2nd. Mercury, actually I'll come to Mercury later. Mercury has already, just so you know, trined the North Node on December the 14th, trined Uranus on December the 17th. So between the 14th and today, and you're going to feel this energy approaching towards the 14th. So from December to the 6th to the 10th, as these planets enter and as they approach these trines to the North Node and Uranus, starting the 14th to today, opportunities could develop that feel like they continue to build on this portal feeling. The sun comes in today. The sun is going to trine Uranus, is going to trine the North Node on the 31st at the end of this month, not that far away, and Uranus on the 5th. And then it's going to conjunct Pluto right before it enters Aquarius, which is going to be about around the 18th of January. So the sun has its own conjunctions to build. But Mercury, which has done these trines and is making its way through the sign of Capricorn, goes retrograde on the 29th. When it goes retrograde on the same day, it meets up with Venus. Why? Then it goes retrograde and it trines Uranus again on, God help us, making through these dates, on January the 8th. Then it trines the North Node again on January the 13th. Then on January the 18th, it goes direct. It trines the North Node for the final time on the 22nd of January. It trines Uranus on the 29th of January, and then conjuncts Pluto on February the 10th, and is out of Capricorn by February the 11th. So, the banquet table is laid. The new moon occurs. We start preparing to move towards this banquet. The new year is announced, but then we go right into this Mercury retrograde that has these two more sets of trines, positive, two more squares to Chiron, challenging but necessary as part of this healing, that need to occur. When Mercury goes retrograde on a mundane level, there's confusion, there are delays, there are challenges, baggage is lost. It's happening, of course, during travel time. People misread things, there are technology challenges, blah, 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 blah. We know this. And certainly around the 29th and around January the 18th are really dates to watch out for. And Mercury conjuncts the Sun, a retrograde Mercury conjuncts the Sun in Capricorn on the 7th of January. Now, all these future dates, worry less about, because in future videos I'll revisit them. But I'm just trying to give you a sense. Venus is going to be done. It's done with its trines. It's going to be done with Capricorn by January the 2nd. Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th. Trines again in the first week and a half of January. Uranus and the North Node goes direct on the 18th. And then as it heads towards the end of January and into February, it trines Uranus and the North Node again. While on a mundane level, a Mercury retrograde creates confusion, on a bigger level, Mercury retrograde brings things into visibility that are not in our visibility. So if we're moving ahead thinking we know everything we need to know about certain things, certain developments, Mercury retrograde goes, hold on, we need to rethink. I need to give you information. We need to replan. We need to review information that is in your blind spot right now, either because other people have not brought this to your attention, you have not brought things to their attention. It is stuff that is brewing that is simply not present. When Mercury goes retrograde, you have to review things, redo things, replan things, rethink things, re-look at all the information you have and recognate and replan around that. When Venus goes retrograde, you have to revalue relationships, finances. When Mars goes retrograde, you really have to look at what triggers you and what actions you're taking and what conflicts you're taking in that part of the chart, and retreat so that you can replan your plan of attack, whether it is attacking your goals and going after what you want, or whether it is setting boundaries. Okay, Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th. The banquet is laid, but it is not, we can't start eating yet. Indeed, things don't really start to clear with regard to enjoying the banquet and moving forward in a clear way until Mars goes direct on the 12th of January. Mercury goes direct on the 18th of January. I would say it's really by the time we get to the end of January, by around the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and Mercury starts to do those final trines to the North Node and Uranus, that we are all clear. and we can finally know what on that banquet table is meant for us, and we can go ahead and make the most of it. Okay. That doesn't mean that the new moon does not, and this is a funny new moon, because it may very well, new moons bring things. It could be that whatever the new moon or the Capricorn energy is bringing is already here in the last week, week and a half. But the new moon inaugurates it. It makes it official. You start to move towards it. But there is a process. There's more that is to come and that needs to be revealed, that needs to be factored in before you can really move forward with this Capricorn energy. You are going to be taking action in the Capricorn energy. The Mercury retrograde isn't going to stop you from taking action, but things have to be replanned, redone, reevaluated, and that's going to be part of this new moon energy, part of this month that inaugurates with this new moon. And the Mercury retrograde is an extremely important factor in this. So if the new moon agenda is starting to play out, the new moon energy is there, it's not going to be the same if you, for example, have an Aquarius ascendant where this stuff is playing out in your 12th house and it's more behind the scenes. Your new year starts around January 21st still. But something is working in this Capricorn part of the chart, and it feels positive, and you're moving forward, but the brakes are going to be put on it, and things have to be, the details have to be worked out. There are things that have to emerge out of the woodwork that we cannot predict what they are. And this next week, as we head towards the 29th of December, may bring that information, start to bring that information on the table. And then it begs the question, okay, where do we go from here? How do we plan? Where do we go? And it's not all clear until we get to the end of January. And Mercury remains in Capricorn, thinking, planning, doing, executing, till February the 10th, February the 11th, okay, when it conjuncts Pluto there. So exciting times, potentially. All this other transformation remains, but there's a fasten your seatbelts quality, and there's certainly the banquet is laid, but you don't get to eat just yet. The meal is postponed to the end of January and into February. Maybe even the meal is postponed to the middle of February once all these details get clear and clarified. I will leave it at that for now. We're going to build more. We're going to do the next video on Jupiter. Like, comment, subscribe, share, click the bell icon to be notified whenever I do new videos. It's the squiggly bell icon on top of the bell icon. And then we'll continue to build on this. I hope you found this useful. Take care.